Oh man, what's up, everybody? I'm Brandon Jeffs. I run a company called Building the Talent Machine. I'm super psyched to be here and spend a little bit of time with you. This space in this room is absolutely beautiful. One of my mentors is a man by the name of Torrin Ellis, and he taught me when I enter a room to really focus intentionally on the space. And if you have ever seen Torrin Ellis enter a room, he owns that space. Every piece of that environment becomes a part of what he is speaking on. So to step on this stage and to have this room transformed by the beauty of the space, beauty of the city, I'm excited to chat a little bit with you today about some of the work I'm doing and some of the ideas I have about recruiting as it stands today. So we're going to talk a little bit about vibe hiring and how we got here. So I've been on the road for the last 8 weeks. This is event 7 in 8 weeks. And what I've seen firsthand in the recruiting industry is a lot of folks are borrowing nomenclature from other parts of SaaS. We see this with words like AI native in the B2B SaaS ecosystem. Now we have ATS vendors saying they're AI native. So recruiting is often reactive when it comes to the vendor ecosystem for how we talk about the problems we're solving. But today we're just going to have a little bit of fun because I'm a vibes guy. All right. So before we jump in, I would ask you to do one small exercise. I actually want all of you to close your eyes with me and think about a recruiter who changed your life. The recruiter who changed my life came to me at a time where I was working in a homeless shelter and I had an opportunity to go work in a very unsexy industry where I became a road warrior traveling around the country, hiring temporary workers at a grocery store. And what I found through this experience is that it was a culmination of everything I love to do: storytelling and connecting with people in my community. So after this, I'm going to send that person a thank you note. It's a woman who has been a mentor to me. And I want to encourage all of you to send that message to the person you just thought of. You never know what somebody is experiencing in life, and there is always a high return on gratitude. So please send that person that email, a text, or a call. All right, let's jump in. Boom. So that's me. I have worked in public companies, private equity, and venture-backed startups. I helped launch a tech-enabled exec search agency a few years back. The founder of that company is now my current business partner for Building the Talent Machine, which is a recruiting media company. We do video storytelling through conversations with talent leaders. So raise your hand if you're a talent leader. Awesome. We just got 30 new guests for my podcast. And then I also do off-the-shelf content marketing for recruiting tech vendors who don't have an internal video content team. They come to me and my production company, and we do off-the-shelf content for video storytelling. So please check it out. You can watch it on YouTube. I do have a Substack and all of that. But what I'm trying to do is just have a little bit more fun and bring some of that high-level content into new media. All right. So before I jump in, I'd just like to preface by saying that perfect is the enemy of good. This is one of my recruiting mantras: building startups. My experience over the last 4 years has been heavily biased by speed and optimizing for direct sourcing. There are many ways to hire. There are many ways to launch a rec. The way I launch a rec is having to place roles for people I go out and find. So yes, I am a sourcer. So take my words with a grain of salt. If there's something you don't like, just move on. The world is a lot smaller than we think. That is a reflection of my last 10 years of recruiting. I'm sure you all have those stories where you have an amazing experience with happenstance or serendipity. I live for those moments. I'm actually the guy that opened a rec and saw the high school bully in the rec. And I moved 1,500 miles across the country. And then the last thing I'll say is there's no one right way to hire. So there's no recruiting jail. There's no recruiting emergency. What you're doing is probably getting it done if you're in this room. All right, vibe hiring. What we're going to cover is why it is everywhere right now, if you have heard of it, why we're not going to ignore it, and why we're going to hear more of it in the next few months and probably the next couple of cycles in hiring years. And then you'll leave this presentation hopefully with one consideration, one takeaway, and a little bit of hype. That's kind of my persona. All right. So this is pretty much how hiring feels right now. Anybody have an active rec? Anybody have like their favorite worst hiring manager? You can raise your hands. I got plenty. Tim even made pens for them. This is how it feels like when you talk to a hiring manager right now. They just want like that A player, 99th percentile person, super senior for 25th percentile comp in an IC role. And that is just like not the reality of hiring. Everybody says they hire the best candidates or A players or top talent. That doesn't mean anything. Those are just business words. This is just to set the tone and keep things light. I appreciate some fire meme games. So if you have some fire memes, hit me up in the DMs. I'm always down for a chuckle. So today we're talking about vibes. We got little Alan up there in the corner. So this is an article that came out in Forbes back in May, and it was talking about vibes hiring, plural. And in this article features Kieran Snyder, who's the CEO, former CEO of Textio, current fractional chief people officer and head of diversity and inclusion, is a friend of mine named Rocky. So this article is interesting because it talks a little bit about how companies have started hiring off vibes. And what they did is they broke down all of the natural language processing in Textio's platform from the interviews. And what they saw is that hiring teams say one thing for how they approach hiring, and then they do the opposite. And they often hire on vibes. So what are vibes? When it comes to vibe hiring and the title of the presentation, it's a little bit like AI sourcing. So that's where we're going to end up. We're going to end up thinking about how do we work with these AI sourcing tools? Remember, I'm a sourcer. Does anybody else in the room identify as a sourcer? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, that works. That works. If you're not, what are you guys doing? Yes. And we're going to talk a little bit about vibe coding. Has anybody heard the phrase vibe coding? Awesome. And then right now, has anybody heard just like vibe? I know Taylor Swift's got a lyric, something about that. I'm not going to do the dance. I'm trying to practice it at home. So what vibes feel like right now is something that we can't quite define. And when it comes to vibe hiring, it's actually kind of different from that feeling and the sentiment that we just saw in that article. So let's figure out what that's going to be and unpack it. All right, so vibe coding, we're going to talk a little bit about vibe coding and how it relates to sourcing and recruiting. So a few people are familiar with vibe coding, and what this basically is leveraging LLM-based interfaces in software to use natural language to generate code that then results in some sort of web page. This has allowed the average non-technical, non-software developer who develops software. This is probably one of the most revolutionary technologies we will ever see in our lifetime. There has been a moat around the knowledge that it takes to develop a website for the last 20 to 30 years. And now, for the first time, Google is telling you exactly how you can be a software developer. Isn't that crazy? Literally all over Twitter. If you want to scan the QR code, that goes to the Google Cloud article that defines vibe coding, the origin, who coined the phrase, etc. And if you do want to get technical, you can actually use ChatGPT to then synopsize this article, and then you can call yourself a software developer. I promise I'm not stealing your crypto with that QR code. All right, so what is the proof that vibe coding exists? I'm not up here making things up. So that was Business Insider, an accountant. Career pivoted at age 39. That's pretty crazy. I'm going to be 39 this year. I've had a couple different careers. I drove a forklift. I wore Carhartts when I needed to, not before they were cool. I had a Stanley thermos in that forklift rattling around before those were cool too. And then I got a new career, and I traded my steel toes for slippers. So I'm pretty grateful for that. I made that career transition in my 20s, but I've got a mentor who's a recruiting leader, and she's going to be a software developer. She's done recruiting for 20, 25 years. She's young, and she wants to go develop software. So you can do that with vibe coding and use that as a foundation. And then there are a few other articles in there about the conundrum we have faced with vibe coding. And the reality is, it's not actually a craft. We've taken this ability to leverage technology, put on a mask, and pretend that we're something we're not. Yes, it's a useful tool, but it's only the foundation. So now what we're seeing as a result of vibe coding taking over pop culture and tech for the last year and a half or 2 years is real software engineers are going in and cleaning up the mess that vibe coders created. Hell does this have to do with hiring? Let's go back to hiring. We talked a little bit about vibe hiring. and Vibes hiring. Vibes hiring was from the article in Textio. We have always hired off Vibes. We just don't admit it to ourselves. There's literally a YouTube video with 136,000 views telling you how to pass the Google interview. I passed it. I got an offer at Google. How did I get an offer at Google? I was a referral. I watched these videos. I attended their interview preparation trainings. I memorized what they told me they wanted to hear in the hypothetical behavioral sandwich. And I did exactly what they told me to do to get that offer. It had zero to do with creativity. It had zero to do with anything net new I generated. It had zero to do with a custom web page or a TikTok doing a virtual resume. All I did was play the game they wanted me to play so they could vibe check me. So when it comes to the tools and systems that companies use, here are a few logos of companies that exist. I don't have a ton of opinions towards them, but psychometrics is a fancy word for vibes. We've seen personality tests leveraged in the hiring process. Raise your hand if you work at a company that uses personality tests. That's actually more people that raise their hands saying they're a sorcerer. Y'all are gonna hate me. Does anybody use a cognitive skills test? Awesome. These are pretty good predictors as well. What we've done is we have drank the Kool-Aid that psychometrics are a valid way to check vibes. When it comes to how we assess talent, we often break down the hard skills and the soft skills. And I'm sorry to break it to you, but the soft skills, they're just vibes. And the worst part is when people analytics teams, those data science folks, the PhD researchers, come in and they create a fancy chart about the motivations of workers and the attributes of great work behavior and try to reverse those competencies into interview questions, telling recruiters how we want to shape the vibe assessment process. So we've always hired on vibes. We've just called it something differently. And there is a writer, his name is Don Miguel Ruiz. Has anybody read the 4 agreements? One of the agreements is being intentional with our word. That's why I wanted to give you this hard truth today. We have been told a lie that we have adopted to be good employees at what we do. That's okay. Everybody does that in every single business group. So I'm excited about a future of recruiting where we can be a little bit more intentional with our word and call things as they are. And I saw this great LinkedIn post last week from some guy. I don't know if you can, yeah, you can see that pretty good. These were like his gripes. And I thought it was pretty funny because I don't know if you've seen job titles where you're like, what the hell do you do? The good one that I like is the fractional CMO. Like, how are you a fractional chief of if you've never been a chief of? But the best part is Mitch King is my homie and he always drops stingers and he kind of got this guy with a pretty good burn. But the reality of what this post told me beyond the laugh is that we're not being intentional with our word. We really need to just be a little more transparent with ourselves and candidates in order to provide great hiring experiences. And when it comes to providing great hiring experiences, when we focus on soft skills, the vibes, and hard skills, the competencies, and what they're going to deliver in the job, we fail to index and assess one major piece. Can anybody guess what it is based on Tiny Tony? Does anybody want to take a crack at the one thing we fail as recruiters to index more heavily on? It's okay. That's okay. That's close. Motivation. Second to cognitive skills, the largest predictor of job success is a candidate's motivation to do that job. I know in my experience, living and breathing recruiting, being on the road away from my family, lugging a camera around, telling these stories, asking questions, that I love recruiting. It is my calling. There are days that I can admit to myself, my friends, my business partner that I'm not motivated. So when it comes to the work we do as recruiters, we need to honor that within our candidates and index more heavily on how they will be motivated to do the job we are preparing them to interview for. All right. So now we're going to get into a little bit of vibe hiring as it relates to AI sourcing. These are logos of companies. Companies help recruiting processes do their jobs. Recruiters do their job and the processes better. Has anybody sandboxed some AI sourcing tools in the last year or so? Anyone want to share what their experience is like? Just off the cuff, anything that comes to mind? I like that. Sounds good. You want to do it louder? It's awesome. Okay, so When we think about what vibe coding is, remember I told you it's when you type in natural language that translates sentences into software code. Anybody who has used an AI sourcing tool will tell you that experience is kind of similar. Anybody here consider themselves like an advanced Boolean search person for sourcing? Sweet. That's awesome. I'm not. I'm a sourcer and I've scraped by working with the tools and technologies I've had, but I'm not the best Boolean person in the world. I've got an Excel spreadsheet that's like 1,000 years old. People like Carmen, people like Aaron Matthew, people like Brian Fink, people like Steve Levy always help me out. People like Dean DaCosta, like some of the best sourcers in the freaking world have become my friends. And I'm really grateful for that. It's just a skill set that I'm not going to be awesome at. I'm also kind of late. When it comes to AI sourcing and vibe hiring, what we are asking these platforms to do is translate the needs of a role into natural language and then into querying a database to return candidates that are going to be a match for the role we're hiring and sending to our hiring managers. Remember when I told you what's going down with vibe coding and how real software engineers are being called in to clean up the mess? Vibe hiring scares the shit out of me, because we just had a panel with some folks that are committed in speaking about inclusion and equity, things that really matter. So if these tools are scraping a database and returning a list of candidates to us based on natural language prompts, how are we to trust that we are going to get the most robust set of skills and individuals to our hiring managers with the utmost confidence? I truly believe recruiting is an art and a science. I love the craft of recruiting. I don't like taking shortcuts. And I don't think either of you do either. So when it comes to vibe hiring, we need to be very conscientious and cautious and be curious about how these technologies are built. I've worked with some of these tools. I've used them to hire candidates. I A/B test every tool I have. And my curiosity at this point is, how can we see around a corner and learn from a very similar product pattern that's happening in software development, so that we, as recruiters, don't run into the same issues when it comes to the most important part of the business: hiring great people who are highly motivated. So we are living in a post-truth era. And one of the truths as it relates to business is how traditional business metrics are defined. Raise your hand if you have an MBA. Anybody here have an MBA? More than sourcers. What the hell? That's awesome. One of the things they teach you in business school is general accounting principles and how businesses operate. What is a cap table? What does cash flow look like? How do we communicate about things that have real definitions as it relates to being fiduciaries for a business? Right now, what we're seeing in early stage tech startups is the manipulation of a traditional business metric. ARR, annual recurring revenue, is one of those terms that is being misused by early stage startups. They leverage this term so that they appear more credible. So as you go to market to buy some tools, maybe just have a little curiosity around whether that company is being truthful with where they are at. And one of the other things that lacks a universal definition, Tim said it earlier, holy grail of hiring, quality of hire. When it comes to quality of hire, it's a little bit of a choose your own adventure. Does anybody here currently operationalize quality of hire where they work? Finally, less hands than sourcers. I happened to work for a quality of hire vendor a few years ago. And one of the challenges with quality of hire is it lacks a universal definition. It means something different to pretty much every one of us in this room. Is there another top line business metric in any other business group that has a choose your own adventure definition? There's not. So why do we as recruiters allow ourselves to be held accountable to something that means nothing to everybody? If your hiring manager comes into your business and they believe quality of hire to be how their previous employer defined it, and you're now asking them to change their mind and learn a new definition, we are causing friction. We are causing confusion. This is the highway to hell in a G&A function. We cannot redefine the fact that recruiting and HR is a cost center. Here's a spoiler alert. Sales payroll is also a cost center. So let's get out of the trap of, are we a cost center or not, and focus on having strong top-line business metrics so that we can get better at hiring and indexing on candidate motivation. So what is a top line metric that we could adopt? I'm a big fan of revenue per employee. Sorry, I'm a tech bro. You probably saw that when I stood on stage. I was also late. We're also pretty late when it comes to tech. Does anybody use revenue per employee now? So wait, how big is your company? 75 people? Okay. How big is the total company? Wow, that's pretty big. That's great. And then you had your hand up too, right, sir? 50 people? Awesome. I freaking love this metric because it's really only what your investors care about. How are we delivering value when software as a service has completely flipped on its head and we are now selling service as a software? Service as a software is where humans leverage agents to provide great value through services. So I quit my job this year to do recruiting storytelling, which is pretty awesome. I highly encourage everybody to quit their job and follow their dreams. It's super dope. The only problem is I've seen Tim Sackett more than I have seen my children in the last 2 weeks. I'm morally opposed to that. My last full-time job was at a tech startup called TLDR. Does anybody know what TLDR is or what it stands for? Too long, didn't read. Awesome. So TLDR is one of the largest tech newsletters in the world. In my past life, I was a marketer and I ran an email newsletter for like 1.3 million people. It was crazy. Like I was literally getting paid to put emojis in a subject line. And like that resulted in people buying more shit. And then I got like pats on the back. It was nuts. So I joined this email newsletter probably because I had some experience that made sense being a newsletter guy. And I was a people and recruiting team of one. We were 20 people. I inherited a sales team that was underperforming. We had strong issues with engagement. We had a pretty good NPS. That was the first thing I did upon implementing some structure and engagement processes into the company. But we quickly learned that we didn't have the right people in place. We had a low quality of hire. So what we did is we made the hard decision to lay off underperformers with compassion, with empathy, with severance, with career coaching, with tapping into my network. And what we did from there is rebuilt the team with the right folks on board. And we adopted revenue per employee. And in that time, we went from 20 employees down to 10, back up to 15 full-timers. And we started leveraging a few high-value contract fractional individuals who could come in 10 to 15 hours a week and provide tremendous value at a premium price. What we saw as a result in 1 year was 3x in revenue. I'm not taking credit for everything that we did in the people and talent function. What we did is went out and headhunted and sourced one-of-one positions from direct competitors. Got a great cease and desist text message. Anybody else get a cease and desist ever in their career? I live for that. I love it. You get away with stuff in startups, don't you? And what we saw is we went from $3 million a year in annual revenue, $10 million. So when it comes to thinking about a top line metric, $10 million across 15 individuals is incredible value. That is a real number. That is a number a board of directors understands. That is a number any CFO understands. So as talent leaders, I want to challenge you to question all those bullshit metrics your boss has been putting on you. Is anybody sitting next to their boss right now? And another thing, if AI is so good at hiring, why do these LLM shops have open recruiter recs? Where do you think these software tools that are building AI sourcing are getting their data from? It's an API to these companies. So maybe have a little bit more discernment when you get excited about that next brand or that next SDR who's in your inbox trying to make you feel real good because recruiting got cool. And just because I want to prove to you that I'm a sourcer and I'm going to show you what AI can't, we're going to play a little game called Silicon Valley in real life. Has anybody seen the HBO show Silicon Valley? A couple folks, tech nerds. All right, so these are folks that I've actually sourced over the course of my years recruiting. Probably the last 4 or 5. These are real people that I have come across that I think we're going to have some fun with. All right, so on the right is the character. On the left is my buddy Xander. Xander runs a company in New York. Great dude. It's funny. He's in this deck because he's building AI SDRs, and I give him shit for it. But that's a pretty good outfit match to a character. We can see the inspo, but I can do better. Character on the left, Erlich Bachman. When I saw this dude, I lost it. I sent it to all my friends. I thought that one was pretty close. Y'all ready for the next one? The irony is Guilfoyle, the guy with the glasses, his arms crossed in the show, plays a DevOps engineer. And this is actually like a DevOps guy from big tech. I'm not going to name drop him, but if anybody knows him, this one was fun. I sent him this picture as well. And then the last one, y'all ready for it? Believe it or not, this is not the same person. I went down a huge rabbit hole just to make sure it wasn't. But I share this game with you because, yes, it's playing off caricatures of individuals. But when it comes to these stories about recruiting and similarities, I can't not send these types of photos to my recruiter buddies when I see them. I also do the same when I see somebody's famous name come through the requisition. Does anybody else do that? When's the last time you recruited a Jerry Garcia? All right, a couple dead fans too. All right. And because I'm saddened to break the news to you, sorcerer is not actually a word in the dictionary. So for years, I've been calling myself something that doesn't exist. And for the first time, I would like to be validated as a human being. And if you also identify as a sorcerer, the like 1.5 other people out there, I would invite you to sign this petition. I'm on a personal mission to get sorcerer added to the dictionary. This is like very real. I'm not joking. Like I flew all the way here. I need 200 phones out right now. The NSFW version of this slide deck is like all the words that are in the dictionary, like before sorcerer. All right, so what can we do when it comes to vibe hiring? We can focus on the fundamentals. Any sports fans here? I'm an NHL, NFL, and Premier League guy. So when it comes to moments of adversity in sports, when a team is having a tough season, when a team is having a hard game and they need to come back, what does the coach tell them to do? Focus on the fundamentals. Sure, there's the occasional trick play. That works 1% of the time. That's not a real number. That works some of the time, not all of the time. To me, as somebody who has worked with all of the emerging technologies in the recruiting space, that has worked on the vendor side, that currently advises AI sourcing products, AI just feels a little bit like a trick play. So I want to challenge all of you to focus on the fundamentals. And the fundamentals are what we can control. Our candidate experience and our candidate funnel. So when you're thinking about improving how you can be better every day as a recruiter, focus on areas in the funnel based on the data you have. Talk to other recruiters in similar industries, recruiting for similar recs. Talk about your numbers. Tim mentioned it earlier. Reverse engineer your pipeline. Those percentages are actually human beings. How many human beings do I need to speak to at the top of the funnel based on the number of stages to get to the person we want to hire? And don't chase vibes. Encourage your hiring managers to stick to the interview plan that you've established at the intake. One of the greatest use cases for AI right now is interview transcription. Does anybody know why? Anybody want to take a crack at it? Hit it. Hiring management. I love it. Hands-free recruiting processes in the interview, but also better candidate experience because I'm being intentional with you. The woman to your right, you had your hand up as well. I love that. Does anybody else have an idea in the back? Yeah, I love that one. I love that because that goes back to vibes hiring. They were a culture fit. We liked Brandon. He was talking about Jerry Garcia. How do you know if I was a good culture fit if you talked 80% of the time? And that leads us to why I'm most excited about the most important use case of AI right now in interview transcription is because it provides hiring manager accountability. For the first time, we can now have visibility into what happens after the recruiter handoff. And when we talk about things like quality of hire that already lack a universal definition, it's important for us to be able to stand up straight and look our hiring managers in the eye, our chief people officer in the eye, and align to the business goals in which we are truly accountable to. Recruiters are not accountable to quality of hire. I'm sorry, but they are not. There are far too many variables that impact an employee's success after we have met our SLAs. If you need somebody to have your back, call me up. I'll gladly be that person. I'll send that email. CC me in, baby. And when it comes to having clean operations, it continues from having clean outcomes to being able to communicate into the business how we're mitigating bias and being more inclusive. And we can do that through our candidate experience and surveys. So thank you very much for listening today. This has been a blast. It was a little bit of mental gymnastics for me. So Thanks for paying attention and keeping up. You can listen to the show, you can watch the show, you can nominate a friend to be on the show. I want 200 emails saying that you want to be on the show. I want to hear your story as a recruiter and why you're in this industry. So thank you so much.